I'm Tom Lord, and here begins. We're designing a web operating system for collaboration. In parts 0 and 1, we developed our understanding of the concepts of collaboration and the ecosystem that it takes place within, and from that analysis established a set of user perspective requirements for the design of a web operating system. So let's begin with a question. What is an operating system? And I propose an operating system is a program that hosts applications. What is an application? Well, an application is a program that is ported between operating systems. Example usage. The animation editor has been ported to GNU Linux. Yes, it's a circular definition. Let's begin with that, though. We'll tune it up later. If a WebOS is a set of programs that host applications, what applications are we talking about? Well, returning to our requirements, we're talking about multimedia applications. And when we talk about multimedia applications, we can break those down into specific uses that people make of them. For example, for viewing multimedia content, people use programs like Firefox or GhostView. For authoring, they use programs like OpenOffice or Inkspace, and so on down the line. What does it mean to host such applications on an operating system? Taking a programmer's view, we can think very pragmatically and say it has something to do with the injection into source code of little if-defs. If you're running on this platform, use this code to write a file, say, that sort of thing. There is a bit of a question. If we look at our list of prototypical multimedia applications, some of them obviously reside on the web. Apache is a fine example, but others don't. How does GhostView or grep or sed, Unix utility sed, how do those things live on a web operating system? Well, this time more seriously, what is an operating system? An operating system manages a set of shared resources that multiple other programs are coordinating with. It provides an API for those shared resources. In relation to our set of requirements, what kind of shared resources are central to a WebOS? We can begin with files. Well, what is a file? We should consider the user's view, the user's conceptualization of a file, and then ask what programmers are supposed to do to accommodate that view. A few set of simple operations, and it turns out, luckily, there is already a standard for this. We can call it WebDave. So as we design the WebOS, we're looking for a file system, and happy coincidence, there's one in WebDave. We have all of these other shared facilities of an operating system that we need to get to. I could go on for hours going through each of these. Let me just show you briefly what I've come up with, and let's talk about how to make all of this happen, how to get a lot of applications ported to this environment and have this environment be meaningful and operative. Rather than spending hours on explaining each point in this slide, to make a long story short, what we want is a bunch of different programs to share a common set of APIs, to have if-defs, to port them to a WebOS. If these programs are using a set of WebOS APIs, we also want, as a complement to that, implementations of servers suitable for running on commodity computing infrastructure, such as, and I don't mean this as an endorsement, but just as a clear example, Amazon's EC2, so that users can set up a server of their own very inexpensively on commodity computing platforms and use all of these free software programs, Inkscape, OpenOffice, FontForge, the GIMP, all of these things, Open Movie Editor, and collaborate on the server instances that they themselves create. And how do we build all of that software? Well, it turns out to break down into a pretty straightforward set of to-do lists. We can make a list of programs that we care about. We can argue about exactly what programs to put in that list, but let's have this list. We can make columns of features these programs need to have in order to interoperate with the WebOS, and we can measure our progress in the project by looking at each of these boxes and say, how are we doing here? Similarly, the complementary server side, well, we can make a list of features that such a server ideally has and see how we're making progress on that. An interesting aspect of this is that it requires cooperation from a lot of diverse projects. For example, I'm suggesting that Inkscape and OpenOffice should both somehow share a common API, should both be able to talk to this WebOS and exchange files via the web. Well, that's two different sets of project managers there. That's two different social scenes. Those are two different open source methodology projects, yet they need to be coordinated. How can we intentionally and proactively bring that about? And that brings me to the point of the project I propose. We have this general conception of a web operating system for collaboration as based on a set of simple fundamental protocols like WebDAV for files, Jabber for instant messaging and shared editing sessions, things like that. We want this to be distributed and decentralized, so we're looking for servers that can run on the emerging space of commodity computing, the cloud. In practical terms, a great deal of the work here is fairly minor changes to existing free software programs, but changes that need to be coordinated across and that span across multiple free software projects. Can Inkspace and OpenOffice both share the WebOS? And therefore, what I'm proposing is the creation of a hub project, a coordinating project whose function is primarily managerial, managing both a tracking of how much progress we make on implementing the WebOS and having various applications ported to it, and also managerial in the sense of having a budget and having the ability to hire on the spot market programmers to develop patches for the various programs that need to be ported. That is, we don't just want to cheerlead and have people volunteer this work, but to professionally approach it and say, let's build this thing, and here are the terms on which we observe the final credits, where we give all of the acknowledgments for the deliberate and inadvertent collaborators on this production. And thank you very much.